Some roads lead somewhere. This one leads back. If you're running from something, a mistake, a memory, a life you ruined, this road knows. It doesn't appear on maps. It doesn't obey distance or time. And once you're on it, turning around is a lie. Because this road doesn't take you where you want to go. It takes you where you refuse to look. And if you hear it say your name, it's already too late.
Chapter 1.
Chapter 1. You didn't get lost. You were chosen. The car had been moving for hours, or at least it felt that way. The traveler couldn't remember the last town he passed through, only the dull rhythm of tires on asphalt and the way the night pressed against the windshield like a held breath. The dashboard clock glowed a tired red, 12:47 a.m., unchanged for longer than it should have been. He told himself the same thing he'd been repeating since he left. I just needed distance. Distance from the house that no longer felt like a home. Distance from the voice that replayed itself whenever things went quiet. Distance from the moment he refused to name out loud. The road stretched ahead in a thin gray ribbon, illuminated just far enough to feel safe. Trees crowded close on both sides, their branches clawing at the dark. No streetlights, no signs, just road and night, and the low hum of the engine, steady as a heartbeat. It wasn't panic that drove him. Panic burned hot and fast. This was colder than that. This was avoidance. The GPS had gone silent an hour ago. The screen still glowed, but the map had dissolved into a blank grid, as if the world ahead simply hadn't been drawn yet. He didn't stop. He didn't turn around. He'd told himself he'd driven through dead zones before. I just needed distance. The fuel gauge hovered just above half. The radio played static, soft and almost comforting, like rain behind walls. Everything felt ordinary enough to ignore the unease settling in his chest. Until the mile marker appeared. Mile 61. He noticed it only because something about it felt late. He was sure he'd passed mile 61 already. He could picture it, rusted post, leaning slightly, numbers faded by years of weather. This one looked new, clean, straight, as if it had been placed there recently. He slowed, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. The darkness behind him swallowed the road whole, leaving no sign of where he'd come from. No glow of distant headlights, no suggestion of a town. Just black. The speedometer dipped, then steadied. The engine's hum deepened, annoyed by the hesitation. He laughed quietly to himself. A thin sound, the kind people made when they didn't want to admit they were nervous. "Get a grip," he muttered, the words vanishing into the car's stale air. The road continued. That was the strange part. No sudden turn, no fork, no missed exit. Just an extra stretch of highway that felt like it had always been there, and hadn't. Minutes passed, or maybe longer. Time felt loose, unmeasured. The trees leaned closer now, their trunks thicker, darker. The road narrowed just enough to notice, lanes pulling inward like ribs. Another mile marker slid into view. Mile 61. His foot lifted off the accelerator. The car coasted. His pulse did not. "That's not possible," he said, louder this time as if volume could correct reality. He checked the odometer. The numbers ticked forward normally. Everything insisted it was working the way it should. Except the road. A cold realization crept in, slow and deliberate. He hadn't taken a wrong turn. He hadn't missed anything. The road had simply continued. The phrase returned uninvited, looping in his thoughts. I just needed distance. The air inside the car felt heavier now, thick with old upholstery and something faintly metallic. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. He became acutely aware of his own breathing, too loud in the quiet cabin. Searching would mean slowing down, stopping, turning around. He didn't do any of those things, because somewhere, deep beneath the guilt and the rationalizations, he understood something without knowing how. You didn't find this road by looking for it. It found you when you were already running. The headlights flickered, just once, enough to make his stomach drop. When they steadied again, the trees had changed. Their branches arched overhead now, knitting together into a loose canopy that blocked out the stars. The night pressed closer, intimate and watchful. The radio crackled. For a moment, he thought he heard a voice beneath the static. Not words, just the suggestion of sound, like someone clearing their throat before speaking. He reached to turn it off, then hesitated. Silence felt worse. The mile marker ahead gleamed faintly in the headlights. Mile 62. Relief washed through him, sharp and immediate. He let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Maybe it really had been nothing. Fatigue, stress, his mind playing tricks on him. The road straightened, smoothing out. The canopy thinned. The night loosened its grip. For a brief moment, everything felt normal again. Then he glanced in the rearview mirror. Behind him, the mile marker read, Mile 61. The road didn't loop, it remembered. And as the car carried him forward into the waiting dark, one truth settled in with quiet certainty. He hadn't been chosen because he was special. He'd been chosen because he refused to stop running. The road stretched on, patient and endless, as if it had all the time in the world. And it wasn't done with him yet.
Chapter 2.
Chapter 2. The road changes when you stop looking at it. Morning should have come. Instead, the night thinned into something gray and uncertain, as if dawn had lost interest halfway through its work. The sky lightened without color. The trees remained black silhouettes, unmoving. The traveler couldn't remember falling asleep, only the ache behind his eyes and the stiffness in his neck as he blinked himself awake. The car was still moving, slowly, carefully, as though it knew better than to rush. The dashboard clock read 12:47 a.m., exactly the same as before. He stared at it longer than necessary, waiting for the numbers to change. They didn't. The second hand ticked, stubborn and precise, but the minute refused to advance. A laugh escaped him, dry, humorless. "Okay," he said softly. "Okay." The road ahead looked different. That was the first thing he noticed. Not dramatically so. No sudden cliffs or impossible bends, just altered. The asphalt seemed darker, smoother, as if freshly laid. The painted lines were brighter, too bright. He was sure they had been cracked and faded before. "I swear that wasn't there before." The phrase surfaced unbidden, and he hated how natural it felt. A green highway sign loomed ahead, its reflective surface catching the dull light. He leaned forward, squinting. Exit 14, still time. His brow furrowed. He was certain that sign hadn't existed last night, certain enough to feel the discomfort settle deep in his stomach. Still, the exit ramp curved away invitingly, its pavement clean, untouched by debris or leaves. Still time for what? He slowed as he passed it, heart pounding, half expecting something to happen if he didn't take the turn. Nothing did. The exit vanished behind him, swallowed by the trees. A mile marker followed soon after, mile 63. He exhaled slowly, tension bleeding away despite himself. Proof, evidence, the road still moved forward, still obeyed numbers. Then another mile marker appeared, mile 63. His grip tightened on the wheel. "No," he whispered. The radio crackled, static shifting in restless patterns. He thought just for a moment he heard a sigh beneath it. Not a voice, just the sound someone made when they were disappointed. The trees crept closer again, branches leaning inward as if listening. Their bark looked rougher now, split and scarred. He became aware of smells he hadn't noticed before. Damp earth, old leaves, something faintly sour, like rust and rain. Hours passed, or minutes. The light never changed. The road offered exits in pairs now, each one identical, each one marked with a sign that felt almost personal. Exit 15, you could have stayed. Exit 15, it wasn't too late. He passed both. The sense of relief that followed surprised him. It felt wrong, but familiar. The comfort of continuing forward, of not deciding anything at all. I just needed distance. The phrase echoed now, quieter, as if something else was finishing it for him. He began to notice the pattern. When his thoughts drifted, when memories threatened to surface, the road shifted, signs appeared, exits multiplied, mile markers reset. But when he focused on driving, on the feel of the wheel beneath his palms, on the hum of the engine, the road steadied. As long as he didn't look too closely, as long as he didn't remember. At one point he blinked, just a normal blink, and the trees were gone. Open land stretched out on both sides, flat and pale, dotted with the husks of old buildings, farmhouses maybe, or gas stations. Their windows were dark, roofs sagging under invisible weight. He was sure they hadn't been there a moment ago. I swear that wasn't there before. The phrase tasted bitter now. He tried to think back, to pinpoint when the landscape had changed. The memory slid away from him, slippery and incomplete, like a dream dissolving after waking. The road didn't want him remembering. It wanted motion. A gas station appeared ahead, its sign flickering weakly. The word open buzzed and dimmed, letters missing chunks like teeth knocked out. His fuel gauge hovered just above empty now. Hope flared, sharp and dangerous. He pulled in. The gas station was silent. No wind, no insects, no sound but the ticking of the cooling engine. The air smelled stale, old gasoline and mildew. Inside the store, shelves stood bare except for dust and yellowed price tags. The restroom door creaked open under his hand. Inside, the mirror above the sink was cracked down the middle. For a moment, his reflection didn't move. Then it blinked. He stumbled back, heart racing, breath ragged. When he looked again, the reflection matched him perfectly, pale, tired, eyes rimmed red with exhaustion. He laughed, shakily and forced. "Just tired," he said. "Just tired." When he stepped back outside, the gas station was gone. The road stretched on, interrupted, smooth and waiting, as if nothing had ever stood there at all. The fuel gauge had risen to half. He didn't question it, because questioning meant looking too closely, and the road, he was beginning to understand, changed itself the moment you stopped pretending not to see it. Ahead, another sign shimmered into existence, its letters rearranging themselves as he watched. Exit 16, remember. He drove faster. Behind him, unseen, the road quietly adjusted its shape, patient, deliberate, preparing the next reminder, because it was learning what he refused to think about, and it was very good at adapting.
Chapter 3.
Chapter 3. Every exit leads to the same regret. The first exit felt like mercy, It curved gently away from the highway, its ramp wide and clean, bordered by low guardrails that reflected the dim, colorless light. A sign stood at its mouth, plain white letters on green. Exit 17, home. His chest tightened. He hadn't seen that word in a long time, not without feeling something twist behind his ribs. He slowed, heart thudding, tires whispering against the asphalt as if urging him on. "I should have taken that turn earlier," he murmured, the words half a joke, half a prayer. The ramp carried him downward, away from the oppressive trees. The air seemed lighter here, warmer. The road narrowed into a familiar two-lane street lined with modest houses, porch lights blowing softly in the gray dusk that wasn't dusk. He recognized this place. Not exactly, but close enough to hurt. A house stood at the end of the street, white siding, a swing on the porch, light spilling from the windows. The kind of place you imagine smelled of coffee and old books and something baking in the oven. Family. His foot hovered over the brake. Then the street began to stretch. The house receded, pulling away no matter how fast he drove. The windows dimmed, the porch light flickered. The road elongated, smooth and endless, until the houses thinned, then vanished entirely. The car shuddered, and without any sensation of turning, without a curve or an intersection, he was back on the highway. The sign behind him read, Exit 17, home. "I should have taken that turn earlier," he said again, louder this time. The words echoed strangely in the car, as if the interior were larger than it should have been. The fuel gauge dipped. Just a hair, but enough to notice. The next exit arrived sooner than he expected. Exit 18, stay. This one looked older. The paint on the sign was chipped, the metal post leaning. The ramp was narrower, its surface cracked and patched. It felt less inviting, more honest. He took it. The road led into a small town frozen in half-light. Storefronts lined the street, their signs faded but familiar. A diner, a bar, a movie theater with posters peeling from the walls. Love. He slowed as he passed the diner, stomach tightening at the sight of a booth near the window. He could almost see her there, head bent, fingers tracing the rim of a coffee cup, waiting longer than she should have. The road radio crackled. For a moment, it sounded like laughter. The town didn't react to him. No movement behind the windows, no doors opening, just the quiet presence of things left behind. At the far end of the street, the pavement crumbled. The buildings thinned, then fell away, replaced by trees pressing close once more. The road straightened. The highway returned beneath his tires. He slammed his hand against the steering wheel, a sharp bark of sound swallowed by the car. "I should have taken that turn earlier." The fuel gauge slipped again, now just under a quarter. Panic stirred. Not sharp, not wild, but heavy, practical, the kind that crept in slowly and stayed. The exits kept coming. Exit 19, responsibility. A narrow road leading past a schoolyard choked with weeds, swings creaking gently though there was no wind. Exit 20, promises. A long, straight stretch bordered by fields of dead crops, the earth cracked and dry. Exit 21, you said you'd come back. That one had no exit at all, just a sign, hovering at the edge of the road, letters trembling slightly as he passed. Each time he chose, each time he returned. The pattern was undeniable now. The exits weren't ways out. They were reminders, carefully curated exhibits of everything he had stepped away from because it was easier to keep moving. The road didn't punish him for taking them. It punished him for believing they would change anything. The light dimmed further. What passed for day here was thinning, draining away like water down a sink.
The trees leaned in close, their branches brushing the edges of the highway, leaves whispering against the car's sides. The engine coughed, once, then steadied. His eyes flicked to the fuel gauge. The needle trembled just above empty. "No," he said softly now. As if in response, an exit appeared ahead, larger than the others, its sign illuminated by unseen lights. Exit 22, last chance. Hope surged, reckless and bright. He took it at speed. The ramp spiraled downward, tighter and tighter, the guardrails rising until they blocked out everything else. The air grew colder. The smell of rust and damp stone filled the car. At the bottom, the road ended. Not in a town, not in a house, but in a dead stop. The pavement crumbled into dirt, then into nothing at all. Beyond it stretched a dark, open space that felt less like emptiness and more like waiting. The car rolled to a halt. The engine died. The silence that followed was absolute. Behind him, headlights flared to life, his own reflecting off a familiar green sign now standing where the ramp had been. Exit 22, last chance. The arrow pointed back the way he had come. The highway waited. And somewhere deep in his chest, he knew the truth he had been circling since the beginning. There were exits. There were always exits. But every one of them led back to the same regret. And now, with the fuel gone and the light fading fast, the road was about to teach him what happened when forward motion was no longer a choice.
Chapter 4.
Chapter 4. The voices only speak the truth you buried. The engine turned over again without explanation. One moment the car sat dead at the edge of the unfinished exit, silence pressing in from every side. The next, the dashboard flickered to life, gauges snapping upright as if nothing had happened at all. The fuel needle rested just above empty, enough to keep moving, never enough to feel safe. The highway had reclaimed him. The ramp was gone. The sign pointing backward had vanished like a thought he wasn't meant to finish. Ahead, the road stretched forward, darker than before, its surface faintly wet, though no rain had fallen. Hours passed, though outside the light never changed. The traveler drove with both hands locked on the wheel now. His shoulders ached from tension he couldn't release. Every mile felt heavier, as if the road itself resisted being traveled. The radio hissed softly, static, low and constant, threading through the car like breath through teeth. He considered turning it off, didn't. Silence still felt worse. At first, it was just noise, familiar, shapeless. Then the static shifted, tightening, thinning into patterns that brushed against language without quite becoming it. A pause, a click, then a voice emerged. Not loud, not sudden, intimate. "You remember this." His chest seized. The voice sounded wrong in a way he couldn't define. Not male, not female, not young or old. It carried no accent, no emotion, just certainty. His fingers fumbled for the volume knob. The voice continued. "You remember this." The radio went silent. He laughed, sharp and brittle, the sound snapping too easily. Hallucinations, that's all. The static returned, and with it, something else. April 17th. His breath caught. That date struck him like a blow to the ribs, not because it was unusual, but because it wasn't, because it lived somewhere deep inside him, buried under layers of deliberate forgetting. The road narrowed. Trees pressed closer, their branches tangling overhead, blotting out whatever passed for sky. The headlights cut a narrow tunnel through the dark, and beyond it, nothing existed. The radio crackled again. "You were there." "No," he said immediately. Too fast, too sure. The static surged, then softened, almost patient. "You remember this." Images surfaced uninvited. Headlights on wet pavement,
the smell of alcohol and old leaves, a shape at the edge of the road. He blinked hard, jaw clenched, forcing the memories back down. The road responded. The asphalt beneath the tires rippled faintly, like skin reacting to touch. The painted lines blurred, then reformed slightly off-center. A mile marker loomed ahead. Mile 17. He hadn't seen numbers that low since the beginning. The radio spoke again, clearer now. "Don't pretend you didn't see it." His hands trembled. "I didn't." He stopped himself, throat tight. The static hissed softly, almost like amusement. "You slowed down." The car lurched, just for a second, enough to make his heart slam against his ribs. The trees thinned abruptly, revealing a stretch of road bordered by guardrails. Beyond them, darkness dropped away into something deeper. He felt the pull of it even without looking. The radio whispered, "You remember this." The smell hit him then, sharp and unmistakable. Antifreeze, blood, cold air rushing in through a shattered window. He gritted his teeth, eyes burning. "I was tired. It wasn't my fault." The road straightened. The radio fell silent. Relief washed through him, weak but welcome. His breathing slowed. The tension in his shoulders eased, just a fraction. Maybe that was all it took. Maybe denial still worked. A few miles later, the radio came back on. Not static this time. Music. A song he hadn't heard in years. One that had played in the background of a night he'd spent trying not to think about anything serious. The volume rose gently. Then the voice cut through it. "You didn't stop." His stomach dropped. The song warped, slowing, notes stretching unnaturally until they dissolved back into static. "You checked the mirror. You saw the lights." The road curved now, bending around something unseen. The guardrails tightened, hemming him in. "You were there." "No," he whispered. "I wasn't." The radio clicked. "Then why do you remember her name?" The name followed. Soft, precise, correct. He screamed, a raw sound torn from his throat, and slammed his palm against the radio. The voice cut out instantly. The car swerved, tires shrieked. He fought the wheel, heart hammering, vision swimming. When the road straightened again, he was alone with the sound of his own breathing. The radio remained silent, but the damage was done. Because now he understood. The voices weren't taunting him. They weren't threatening him. They weren't inventing anything at all. They were reminding him. The road didn't create horrors. It excavated them. Ahead, a sign shimmered into existence, its letters steady and cruelly calm. Exit 23. You can't forget this one. The radio crackled once more. Quiet, patient. You remember this. And deep down, beneath every excuse he'd ever made, the traveler knew the truth the road had been waiting for him to admit. It never lied. It only spoke what he buried. And now that it had found his voice, it wasn't going to stop speaking.
Chapter 5.
Chapter 5. Nightfall is when the road remembers everything. Night did not arrive. It simply thickened. What little gray light had lingered above the trees drained away, leaving behind something heavier than darkness, the kind that pressed against the eyes, the kind that made distance feel shorter and closer at the same time. The traveler felt it settle over the road like a held breath. The asphalt narrowed, not abruptly, not enough to justify panic, just enough that the yellow lines crept closer to his tires, as if the road were slowly tightening its grip. The trees leaned inward, their branches knitting together overhead, forming a crooked archway that swallowed what little sky remained. Shadows stretched too long. They clung to the car as it passed, sliding along the doors, pooling beneath the chassis. The headlights carved a narrow tunnel ahead, and beyond it, nothing. No stars, no moon, just a dense, waiting black.
The dashboard clock still read 12:47 a.m. He didn't look at it anymore. Because time here didn't behave like time. It bent, it folded, it circled back on itself like the road had. Night doesn't pass here. The phrase had crept into his thoughts sometime after the voices stopped. He wasn't sure if it was his own idea or something the road had planted. Either way, it felt true. Minutes stretched, or hours. His eyelids grew heavy, his vision blurring at the edges. He blinked hard, jaw tightening. Fatigue crept into his limbs, dull and insistent. The engine hummed steadily beneath him. Movement. As long as he kept moving, the road stayed tolerable. The moment his speed dipped, the shadows reacted. They thickened, drew closer. The trees groaned softly, wood creaking like old bones under pressure. He pressed the accelerator. The road seemed to relax. A twisted sense of understanding settled. The road didn't want him to stop, because stopping meant standing still, and standing still meant remembering. A shape appeared ahead. At first, he thought it was another abandoned car. Then the headlights caught it properly, and his breath hitched. A figure stood at the edge of the road, motionless, human-shaped, but wrong in the way mannequins were wrong. Too still, too patient. Its features were swallowed by shadow, but he could feel its attention focused on the car, tracking his approach. He didn't slow. The figure turned its head as he passed, just enough. He didn't see its face. He didn't need to. The smell flooded the car again. Antifreeze, damp leaves, something coppery beneath it all. His stomach lurched. The figure vanished in the rearview mirror, swallowed instantly by the dark. His heart pounded, his hand shook. Then, relief. A gas station appeared ahead, bathed in pale yellow light. Real light, solid. The sign buzzed faintly, letters intact, promising something close to safety. He laughed, breathless. Okay, he whispered. He pulled in. The moment the car stopped, the engine died. Silence slammed down around him. The shadows rushed in. They poured across the pavement, crawling up the pumps, smothering the light. The hum of the sign faltered, flickered, then went out completely. The darkness pressed against the windows. His heart raced. No, he whispered. The radio crackled to life, soft, intimate. You stopped. The voice wasn't accusatory. It was disappointed. The shadows thickened, pressing closer, seeping through cracks that shouldn't exist. The intensity of the smell increased. His chest tightened, panic flaring hot and sharp. I can't do this, he whispered. The radio hissed. Then don't stop. The engine turned over. The lights flared back to life, slicing through the dark. The shadows recoiled, retreating just enough to let him breathe. He slammed the accelerator. The car surged forward, tearing away from the gas station. In the rearview mirror, the building collapsed inward on itself, folding into darkness like it had never existed at all. His hand shook violently now, but he was alive. The road widened slightly, easing its grip. The trees pulled back. The shadows loosened. A rule had been learned. Movement kept you alive. Stopping invited something else. Ahead, the road dipped and curved, vanishing into deeper black. The dashboard clock flickered once, then steadied. Still 12:47 a.m. Night didn't pass here. It waited, and as the traveler drove on, heart hammering, exhaustion clawing at him from the inside, he understood something with terrifying clarity. The road remembered everything at night, and it was saving the worst memories for when he was too tired to keep running.
Chapter 6.
Chapter 6. The Passengers Who Never Reached the End. The cars began appearing after the road widened again. Not wrecks, not accidents, just vehicles pulled cleanly onto the shoulder, doors closed, hazard lights long dead. They sat at careful intervals, spaced like punctuation marks along a sentence that refused to end. The traveler noticed the first one because it looked too intentional. A sedan, dark blue, parked straight, tires properly aligned, no sign of panic. It looked like someone had stopped and simply never started again. He drove past it. Then another appeared, and another. Different makes, different years. Some dust-coated and old, others almost new, paint still glossy beneath the headlights. The road curved gently through them, never forcing him to slow, never blocking his path, as if it wanted him to see. The smell returned, old fabric, mildew, faint traces of sweat and fear that didn't belong to him. He realized then that the car no longer smelled only like his anxiety. It smelled layered, borrowed. He pulled over beside a rusted pickup without fully deciding to. The car rolled to a stop on its own, engine idling, lights still on. The shadows stirred at the tree line but did not advance. Movement, he remembered. He left the engine running. The pickup's driver's side door opened easily. Inside, the seat was worn thin, foam exposed like bone. On the passenger floor lay a backpack, half unzipped. He didn't want to look. He did anyway. Clothes, a map with handwritten notes, a phone, screen spiderwebbed with cracks. He picked it up, thumb brushing the glass. It turned on. A single audio file waited on the screen. The timestamp read 12:47 a.m. His breath caught. He pressed play. Static hissed. A man's voice followed, strained but determined. "I thought I could outdrive it. I really did." The recording ended. The traveler stepped back, heart pounding. The words echoed in his head, unsettling in their simplicity. He checked the next car, a hatchback, white, its rear window plastered with stickers, bands, national parks, a cartoon ghost smiling crookedly. Inside, a notebook lay on the seat. The handwriting was neat at first, careful. "I just needed distance," one entry read. Later pages were messier, words slanting downward, lines crowding each other. "The exits keep lying. It knows what I'm thinking. Night doesn't pass here." The final page held only one sentence written over and over until the paper tore. "I thought I could outdrive it." His throat tightened. Car after car told the same story. A woman's purse with a photo tucked inside. A man's voice on a tape recorder laughing shakily as he said, "This is insane, right?" before his laughter dissolved into silence. A glove compartment stuffed with unpaid bills, unopened letters, resignation notices. Lives paused mid-sentence. All of them running, all of them confident at first that speed would be enough. The road remained quiet as he moved among the vehicles. No voices, no radio interference. The shadows stayed back, respectful, like mourners at a distance. He returned to his car with shaking hands, pulled the door shut, and pressed the accelerator. The highway accepted him again without resistance. But the knowledge stayed. These people had survived the road, at least long enough to stop driving. That was the cruel truth settling in now. They hadn't died quickly. They hadn't vanished. They had endured. The road hadn't killed them outright. It had waited until they believed they were safe. Ahead, a stretch of road dipped downward, and at the bottom, a cluster of cars waited. Dozens of them, packed close together, some overlapping the shoulder, others angled slightly, as if pulled over in haste. A graveyard of choices. His fuel gauge flickered dangerously close to empty. He laughed softly, a sound edged with hysteria. "So that's it," he whispered. "That's how this ends." The radio crackled. Not a voice, just static. But beneath it, faint and layered, he thought he heard whispers, many of them, overlapping, repeating the same sentence in different tones. "I thought I could outdrive it." He drove faster. The cluster of abandoned cars slipped past, one by one, disappearing into the darkness behind him, but their presence lingered, heavy and accusatory. The road had history. It had done this before. And the worst part, the thought that made his stomach drop, was not that the others had failed. It was that they believed right up until the end that they were different, that they would be the exception. Ahead, the darkness deepened once more. The trees leaned closer. The road narrowed. And the traveler understood with chilling clarity. He wasn't alone on this highway.
Chapter 7.
Chapter 7. The road shows you what you refuse to forgive. The road changed texture beneath the tires. Not visibly at first, but in the way the steering wheel began to hum, vibrating faintly against his palms. The asphalt felt softer somehow, less solid, like rubber stretched too thin. Each rotation of the wheels produced a muted thud instead of a clean roll. The traveler slowed without meaning to. Immediately, the air thickened. The trees leaned closer, their branches sagging under invisible weight. The darkness pressed in, warm and damp, carrying a smell he hadn't noticed before. Rain on hot pavement, old leaves crushed underfoot, spilled beer. His stomach clenched. "Now," he whispered, "not this." The headlights flickered. When they steadied, the road ahead was no longer empty. It was wet. Rain slicked the asphalt, shimmering unnaturally, though the sky above remained dry and starless. The yellow lines reflected back at him in broken fragments, stretching too far, bending where they shouldn't. The sound came next, a distant horn. Brief, panicked. Then the unmistakable screech of tires. He slammed the brakes. The car skidded, but did not stop. The scene unfolded around him as if he were driving straight into the past. Streetlights flickered to life along the road, casting pale cones of light that strobed as he passed beneath them. His breath came fast now, shallow and tight. "I didn't mean to," he said aloud, as if someone were listening. "I didn't see her." The road dipped, and suddenly, there it was, a car ahead of him, small, compact. Its brake lights flared red, too close, too sudden. Time stretched, thick and viscous, every second pulling apart to reveal all the moments he'd never stopped replaying. The smell of alcohol filled the car. Not imagined, real. His hands shook on the wheel. His foot hovered between pedals, frozen by indecision he'd made once before. The impact never came. Instead, the road lurched sideways, throwing the scene apart like a broken mirror. The streetlights snapped off. The wet pavement dried instantly, leaving behind the dull gray highway once more. He gasped, chest heaving. The silence that followed was deafening. Then the sound returned. Crying, soft at first, close. He turned his head. The passenger seat was no longer empty. A woman sat there, soaked through, hair plastered to her face. Her eyes stared straight ahead, unfocused. Blood trickled from her temple, disappearing into the collar of her jacket. The smell hit him fully now. Antifreeze, rain, iron. "You remember this," she said quietly. His throat closed. "I stopped. I called for help. I waited." She turned to look at him. "You waited for yourself," she replied. The car lurched forward. The woman dissolved into mist, her form unraveling into shadow that seeped into the upholstery, the vents, the cracks in the dashboard. The road twisted sharply, forcing him to grip the wheel harder. The trees gave way to buildings, tall, close set, their windows dark. An apartment complex emerged ahead, achingly familiar. Love. Another memory surfaced, dragged into the light without mercy. A hallway smelling of dust and cheap cleaner. A door half open. A voice asking him to stay. The car slowed again. The engine sputtered, protesting. The road demanded motion, but the memories were heavier now, dragging at him, pulling him backward. "You said you'd come back," a voice whispered, not from the radio, but from everywhere. The buildings leaned inward, walls bending, doors multiplying. Each one bore the same number, his number. He shook his head violently, tears stinging his eyes. "I couldn't. I didn't know how." The road responded instantly. The apartment complex folded in on itself, collapsing into rubble that scattered across the highway before dissolving into dust. The trees surged back, taller than before, their bark split and bleeding sap that glistened like fresh wounds. The engine roared. The smell changed again. Hospitals, bleach, cold air. A final memory pressed forward, one he had buried deeper than the rest. A signature on a form, a choice made quietly, a future erased without a sound. The radio crackled. "You were there," it whispered. I know. The road bucked violently, the asphalt rising and falling like a living thing beneath him. The headlights flared, illuminating a stretch of road paved not from stone, but from faces. Dozens of them. Eyes closed, mouths open in silent accusation. Every person whose future bent because of his choices. The realization settled in with crushing clarity. The road wasn't punishing him, it was feeding on the guilt he refused to forgive himself for, feeding on every justification, every excuse, every mile he'd driven instead of stopping to face what he'd done. The engine screamed. He pushed harder on the accelerator, desperate now, tears blurring his vision. The faces faded, the road smoothed, the trees pulled back just enough to let him breathe again. Movement. As long as he moved, the memories stayed behind him. For now. Ahead, a sign emerged slowly from the dark, its letters etched deep, impossible to ignore. Exit 24. Forgiveness. His heart pounded. He knew, deep down, that this exit was different, and he knew with equal certainty that taking it would mean stopping. The road stretched forward, patient and watchful. Behind him, the past waited. And for the first time since this journey began, the traveler understood the terrible truth the road had been guiding him towards. It wasn't trying to destroy him. It was trying to make him face what he refused to forgive. The sign loomed closer. The engine trembled, and the road waited to see which direction he would choose.
Chapter 8.
Chapter 8. If you stop running, the road stops chasing. The sign for Exit 24, Forgiveness, slipped past him. He didn't take it. The road surged forward eagerly, as if pleased by his decision. The engine smoothed out. The trees relaxed their inward lean. Even the shadows seemed to loosen their grip, trailing behind the car instead of clinging to it. Relief came quickly, too quickly. The traveler knew better now than to trust comfort. His hands trembled on the steering wheel. His chest ached with the effort of keeping his breathing steady. The memories from before still clung to him. Wet pavement, broken glass, a voice that asked him to stay. He accelerated. The road rewarded him with distance. Mile markers returned to counting upward. The headlights reached farther. The radio remained silent. For a time, it almost felt like freedom. Then the thought surfaced, quiet but insistent. What if you stop? He shook his head, jaw tightening. No, he whispered. That's how they got stuck. The abandoned cars flashed through his mind, the journals, the recordings, the voices that believed they could outrun the road forever. The thought returned. What if that's the lie? The speedometer needle hovered just under 60. The engine's hum was steady, comforting, familiar. He eased off the accelerator, just a fraction. Immediately, the world reacted. The headlights dimmed. The trees leaned inward with sudden aggression, branches creaking as they bent. Shadows rushed forward, crawling across the hood, clawing at the windshield. The radio exploded with static. A chorus of voices rose from it, overlapping, frantic. This isn't how it ends. This isn't how it ends. This isn't how it ends. His heart slammed against his ribs. No, he gasped, instinctively pressing the accelerator again. The voices cut out. The road smoothed. The shadows retreated. The message was clear. Speed was safety. But the thought refused to die. They ran until they couldn't anymore. He glanced at the fuel gauge. Empty. The needle rested flat against the line, unmoving. The car was running on something else now, not gasoline. Time stretched thin again. The gray light overhead dimmed further, deepening into a suffocating black. The road narrowed, lanes pulling tight against the tires. He swallowed hard. He took his foot off the accelerator. The car slowed. The environment convulsed. The road buckled, asphalt rippling like disturbed water. Trees shrieked as they bent inward, bark splitting, sap bleeding black. The shadows surged, boiling up from the pavement, wrapping around the car in writhing tendrils. The radio screamed, "This isn't how it ends!" His vision blurred. His hands clenched painfully around the wheel. He forced himself to breathe, slow, measured. The speedometer dipped lower. 40. 35. The engine coughed, protesting, but did not die. The road twisted violently, trying to throw him off balance. The car fishtailed, tires squealing. He corrected gently, refusing to fight it the way he always had. The voices grew louder now, more desperate. You can't stop. You don't get to stop. You don't get forgiveness. He closed his eyes for a brief second. In that brief darkness, he saw her face again, not twisted, not accusing, just tired. "I know," he whispered. "I know." When he opened his eyes, the road had changed. The trees were gone. The shadows had withdrawn, pooling far behind him. The road widened, flattening out into something calm and almost ordinary. The radio fell silent. The car rolled forward at a steady 20 miles an hour. The engine no longer strained. The air inside the car felt lighter, thinner. The smell of antifreeze and blood faded, replaced by something neutral, clean. Rain-washed asphalt. He laughed softly, disbelief trembling in the sound. "That's it, isn't it? You only chase when I run." The road did not respond. Ahead, a familiar stretch of highway appeared, streetlights spaced evenly, lines straight and true. For the first time since this journey began, the road looked like a road again. The dashboard clock flickered. 12:48 a.m. His breath caught. Time moved. A sign appeared ahead, unassuming, its letters simple and unadorned. Slow zone ahead. No judgment, no threat, just instruction. He obeyed. The car rolled forward gently, obediently, as if relieved to be allowed to rest. Behind him, far in the distance, something shifted. He felt it more than heard it, a presence withdrawing, a tension loosening. The road had stopped chasing because he had stopped running. But even as relief settled in, a new fear crept quietly into its place. If speed was never the answer, then what waited for him when the road finally ended? The headlights illuminated the beginning of another exit ramp ahead. This one wasn't marked with a word, just a symbol, a simple arrow pointing downward. The car coasted toward it, slow and steady, the night holding its breath. And somewhere behind him, unseen but not forgotten, the road waited to see if he would truly stop, or if, at the last moment, he would run again.
Chapter 8.
Chapter 9. The end of the road is a confession. The exit ramp did not lead downward. It led nowhere. The arrow on the sign had promised descent, but the road remained level as the traveler followed it, the asphalt thinning beneath his tires until it felt more like a suggestion than a surface. The guardrails vanished, the painted lines faded, then disappeared entirely. Ahead, there was no destination, only space. A widening emptiness stretched out before him, colorless and vast, swallowing the headlight's reach without reflection. No trees, no buildings, no sky, just a flat, pale void that absorbed sound and light alike. The car slowed on its own. The engine idled quietly, almost respectfully. He felt no fear now, only a heavy, settled knowing. This was it. The dashboard clock ticked forward, finally behaving like it was supposed to. 12:49, 12:50. Each second landed with deliberate weight. The road behind him was gone. Not hidden, not dark. Gone. The car rolled to a stop. The engine did not die. The silence here was different from before. It didn't press in. It didn't threaten. It waited. His reflection stared back at him from the windshield, older than he remembered, lines carved deeper by nights like this one, eyes dulled by years of practiced avoidance. The radio clicked on. No static, no voice, just an open channel. He swallowed hard. For the first time since this journey began, there was nothing left to outrun. No shadows lunging at the car, no trees leaning inward, no mile markers looping back on themselves. The road had brought him as far as it could. The rest was up to him. His hands loosened their grip on the steering wheel. They ached, trembled slightly. He hadn't realized how tightly he'd been holding on until now. "I don't know what you want," he said quietly. The emptiness did not answer. He exhaled slowly, then spoke again. "I know why you're here." The words felt strange in his mouth, heavy, real. The emptiness ahead rippled faintly, like water disturbed by a dropped stone. He closed his eyes. The memories rose immediately, no longer forced, no longer violent. They came gently now, like guests who had been waiting a long time to be invited inside. Wet pavement, the sound of impact, the moment he chose not to look back. His throat tightened. This is what I did. The car shuddered softly. The emptiness wavered. He opened his eyes. Shapes began to form in the distance, not solid, not fully real, suggestions of things, moments. He spoke again. "This is what I did." The words echoed faintly, not amplified, but carried, absorbed by the space around him. "I was drinking," he continued, voice shaking but steady. "I was tired. I saw her too late." The scene unfolded ahead of him, translucent and fragile. The road at night, headlights cutting through rain, a figure stepping into view. He didn't flinch. "I didn't stop right away," he said. "I told myself it was shock. I told myself someone else would help." The shapes sharpened. "I drove home." The confession landed like a physical blow. His chest heaved, tears blurred his vision, but he didn't wipe them away. This is what I did. The emptiness receded, pulling back as if retreating from the sound of truth. The emptiness narrowed, the air felt lighter. He continued, voice breaking now. I visited her in the hospital. I brought flowers. I told myself it mattered. The figure ahead faded into a hospital room, pale walls, beeping machines, a woman lying still, breathing shallowly. I signed the papers, he whispered. I told myself it was mercy. The road beneath the car trembled, not violently, weakly. The radio hummed, a low vibration that felt almost tired. This is what I did, he repeated, softer now. The scene dissolved. The emptiness shrank further, collapsing inward until it resembled a long, quiet stretch of ordinary road once more. He felt it then, the road's attention slipping, not angry, not disappointed, finished. The power that shaped the miles, bent time, spoken with borrowed voices, it was fading, not because he fought it, not because he escaped, but because he acknowledged it. The road had nothing left to remind him of. The engine idled. The fuel gauge flickered, then climbed, settling at a steady quarter tank. The dashboard clock ticked forward again, 12:53. A final sign emerged ahead, small and unassuming. Continue. No warning, no command, just a suggestion. He wiped his face with the back of his hand, breathing deeply. The ache in his chest remained, but it was cleaner now, sharper, honest. He put the car in gear, and as he drove forward, the emptiness behind him closed gently, like a door being shut, not locked, but respected. The road had done what it was meant to do. And as the traveler continued on, one truth followed him, quiet and undeniable. The road never needed his fear. It only needed his confession. And now that it had it, it was finally letting him go.
Chapter 10.
Chapter 10. The road never forgets, but it can let you go. Dawn arrived quietly. Not all at once, not with color or warmth, just a thinning of the dark, as if night were finally loosening its grip, reluctantly, finger by finger. The black beyond the windshield softened into gray. Shapes emerged where there had been none, trees, distant hills, a sky that felt impossibly wide after so long confined. The traveler noticed the light only after several minutes had passed, because for the first time he wasn't watching the road for signs. He was simply driving. The asphalt beneath him was ordinary now, cracked in places, patched in others. The painted lines were faded, imperfect, real. The engine hummed with a familiar, imperfect rhythm, no longer too smooth, no longer too patient. The dashboard clock read 6:12 a.m. Time had moved while he wasn't looking. He swallowed, throat tight. The road ahead curved gently, revealing a distant horizon touched with pale gold. Clouds caught the early light, their edges glowing faintly, almost tender. Dawn. He hadn't believed it would come. The radio remained silent, not broken, not waiting, just off. The car smelled like old upholstery again, faint coffee, the ghost of something sweet hanging in the air. Normal smells, the kind you didn't notice until they were gone. The road didn't vanish. It didn't collapse or peel away into nothingness. It stayed where it was, stretching out behind him in the rearview mirror, long, quiet, unremarkable, waiting.
A sign appeared ahead, small and easy to miss. Exit 25. Continue home. No emphasis, no accusation. He slowed, not because the road demanded it, because he chose to. The exit ramp curved downward, gentle and forgiving. The trees thinned instead of closing in. Birds stirred somewhere beyond sight, their distant calls fragile but unmistakably real. As he descended, the weight he'd been carrying shifted. It didn't disappear, it settled, lower, closer to the center of him, where it belonged. The ramp ended at a 2-lane road bordered by fields wet with morning dew. A farmhouse stood in the distance, smoke curling lazily from its chimney. Life continued. He reached an intersection and stopped. The car idled patiently. No shadows surged, no voices whispered. The road behind him made no move to follow. He sat there longer than necessary, hands resting loosely on the wheel, chest rising and falling in slow, deliberate breaths. He felt changed, not absolved, not forgiven by anything external, but honest. The truth he'd spoken still echoed inside, not as an accusation, but as a boundary, a line he could no longer pretend wasn't there. He turned on to the smaller road. As the highway slipped out of view, a familiar thought surfaced, not with panic this time, but with clarity. The road would remember him. He didn't doubt that. It would remember his speed, his fear, his silence. It would remember the moment he stopped running, and it would wait. Because that was the final truth he understood now, the one the road had been guiding him toward from the very beginning. Some roads don't hunt you. They don't chase you down. They wait until you are ready to come back. The fields rolled past. The sky brightened. The world widened around him, full of small, ordinary details he'd forgotten how to notice. A mailbox, a fence leaning slightly to one side, the smell of wet grass drifting through an open window. He drove on. And somewhere far behind him, the road remained exactly where it was, unchanged, unbothered, patient beyond reason, because it never forgot, but it had let him go, for now. And as the sun finally broke free of the horizon, casting long shadows that behaved the way shadows should, one last thought settled into place, quiet and unshakable. Some roads don't follow you, they wait for you.
The road didn't trap him, it revealed him. Because the truth is, we all run. From guilt, from grief, from the moment that broke us. And we tell ourselves distance is the cure. But some roads don't measure miles, they measure avoidance. And every step you take away from the truth gives it more ground to follow you. So, if you're listening to this late at night, if you feel like something from your past is catching up, ask yourself one question. What road are you still driving on? If this story stayed with you, don't look away. Subscribe and come back tomorrow night, because the road always remembers, and it knows your name.